Chief and Grand Rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is December the 16th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar and 1441 on the ancient sun calendar and 2021 on the Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign, living, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American Article 3 Consular Court action. I am Sovereign Living Justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in Capita Femini Shonello, in red ink, in proprio personas juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. My free chosen sovereign appellation is like the jury bay, in Capita Femini Shonello, in red ink, in proprio personas juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. We are the sovereign, living, ancient, Al-Moroccan ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. We hereby exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, not pro-time. So we're going to talk today. First, I wanted to bring up that the full moon is going to be on December the 18th. It's December 18th. So the 17th, 18th, and 19th, and running right up until the winter solstice, we're going to be fasting for those who want to fast from sun up to sundown. You can fast from negative energy. You can fast from certain types of food, or you can just meditate with us over the 3-day period. Which we meditate regularly on a daily basis anyway, together as a nation. Just in our everyday activity, we're staying together and staying unified mentally, as well as, in the other ways that we meet. So with that being said, today we want to talk about something that has been, from one perspective, it's been plaguing our nation, seemingly. So we're going to do a reversion of the state on this particular topic, and the topic is foreclosure. So we've been doing Universal Commercial Code 1 lien by affidavit on government letterhead like what's on the screen. We've been doing that, or whatever version of that letterhead that you have, all are valid. We've been doing Universal Commercial Code 1 liens on the public record against any corpses that have been pretending to be government, any corpses that have been pretending to be corpses, or corporations that have been pretending to be courts or pretending to be property owners and all of that when they're none of that. And so today we want to talk about how to go about doing the foreclosure process by way of Universal Commercial Code 1, Article 9, which is secured transactions. That's the title of Article 9, is secured transactions. And those secured transactions include foreclosure. And we spell ours differently, as always, because transaction means what we say it means and not what anyone else says. Secured means what we say it means, and foreclosure means what we say it means. Because, see, on their end, foreclosure means abandonment. For us, foreclosure means we are the true heirs, and we are here to possess the property. So Article 9 of the Universal Commercial Code is right of possession, or right for possession, either one, which includes foreclosure. And this article is in place simply because when we do a Universal Commercial Code 1 lien, as part of the whole process of right of possession and all that belongs to us, we know that we put them the corpses in debt, and they have no way to pay the debt. So we had to give them a way to pay the debt, which we have done that. We did that with the dollarium. Dollarium is on the public record, and we've given them a way to do it, to pay. And since they have not used the dollarium to pay us, now we have every right to do an Article 9 on them. Okay. So we've been looking at Article 9 because we had to provide them a way to pay before, you know, as a part of due process, before the foreclosure process could actually take effect. Now, we've proclaimed foreclosures all along, but again, we had to provide remedies before we could move to the next level. But everything that we've done thus far has absolutely been in order, and it's been according to law. So because we don't, and see, another part of that is this, that we don't accept fiat because our liens are gold backed. They're lawful, okay? And because we don't accept fiat, that maintains the integrity of our liens, okay? If we had said to them, we're liening you and you can give us the $100 million in fiat, then that would have broken the integrity of our liens because they're original, indigenous, ancient liens that are based on the gold, the natural resources, and we know that the gold is the Moors. We know that. So we don't accept fiat, and we didn't even ask for fiat because that is not what we want, and we're not asking. All we're doing is moving forward with what is our rightful inheritance. So the integrity of our affidavits have stood the test. There's been no proper rebuttal, and we see that we can see clear as day that, okay, they've stopped a lot of that activity that's going on, and yes, individual Moors are still being tested. That's happening. That's happening. We're not in denial about that because we were right there with you, okay? We're all here together. So let's take a look at the foreclosure process according to the Universal Commercial Code and see how that is effectuated, okay? So what is necessary for foreclosure? What we're going to do is I'm going to show you, I'm going to put a link in the chat so that we can look at what's necessary for foreclosure, for that foreclosure process. I pulled up some information on, there it is right there in the chat, and we'll put these links under the video as well on YouTube at Like Tajiri Day channel. But with regard to the foreclosure process, let's just take a look at how do you put a secure transaction such as a foreclosure on Article 9, what does it take to put that on the record? Okay, now we know that we do everything by affidavit, so we're going to look at what they're saying about how that's done, and then we're going to clean it up and use the information, okay? And I'll tell you this, some of the things that we've been doing, very, very powerful when it comes to the positions that we take to express our sovereign status. So again, we know we don't fill out their forms, but we're just going to look at what they're doing and then clean it up and put it into its proper format. So Article 9. Article 9, it is, here they're saying that it's for all jurisdictions except New York and Puerto Rico. And we know those are not real jurisdictions, so our sovereign jurisdiction absolutely is all land, all natural resources, and all commerce, okay? So, but I did take a look and see, you know, why New York and why Puerto Rico? Because I like to just take a peek and see. And they're saying that as if the United States Corporation Company has some standing at those places, and that they cannot do Article 9 there. So we know that we can, according to the law. Okay. Now, the forms that are used, and again, we don't use their forms, we're talking affidavits. Universal for us, and I'm going to speak in our language and not their language. Universal Commercial Code 1, initial financing statement. We've done those, okay? We've done them. And then they say any addendum, okay? And we haven't done any addendums, but if you had any addendums, a fixture, real estate related filings, etc., where you want to add additional debtors or another secured party, you know, etc., or when you want to designate an assigner secured party, which, you know, most of us put that in the initial financing statement already as it is. Okay, and again, as we've been stating previously, and we're putting it on the public record again, that everything that we do, we're doing it from the sovereign state stand. Okay, I was going to say standpoint. The sovereign state standpoint, the government standpoint. And we've been stating that all along, that we're not doing things as individual Moors, we're doing it as the state and the government and the law, because that's who we are. And then they say a uniform, and they're speaking Uniform Commercial Code, we're speaking Universal Commercial Code Affidavit. So Universal Commercial Code Affidavit 3 amendment form, which we don't necessarily need those, but if you need to do your study on how to craft your sovereign affidavit accordingly, then that's something that you can look into if you need to add any additional information, any additional parties, etc. Okay, and then Universal Commercial Code 5 affidavit information sheet. And they say that that is a statement of claim or in some states, a correction statement. I want us to pay close attention to the part here that says in some states, okay? This is important because they're not telling you, they're not coming right out and saying that this process is a process for states and not individuals. But they put the word state in all lowercase letters, okay? And it's, again, everything that we do it as the state, because that's who we are, and the government and the law. So this information statement, formerly called the statement of claim, we already did that in our initial financing statement. So we've already covered these, and now all we're doing for foreclosure is taking our Universal Commercial Code 1 affidavit on government letterhead in red and all lowercase letters, unless we're talking about the debtors, and we're saying we're going to add an Article 9 to this, a secured transaction to this, a secured exchange to this process. And we'll just take a look quickly. If you'll notice, the process for Puerto Rico is not much different. It's not much different. It's all still the same. It's still the same articles that they're invoking. Same thing for New York. There's a couple of other articles that they're invoking that have to do with amendments, but we're not doing an amendment. We're doing an Article 9. So an Article 9 is going to be we take the original or the initial Universal Commercial Code 1 affidavit, and we add an additional affidavit that says this is a Universal Commercial Code 1, Article 9, and it is part and parcel of the Universal Commercial Code 1 initial financing statement. Okay? And some might say that that's an addendum, but it's not an addendum if you're adding, if you're saying we're finishing up the process that we started by foreclosing, because payment has not been received for the initial Universal Commercial Code 1 initial financing statement. Okay, affidavit. Okay, so again, it's a Universal Commercial Code Code 1 Article 9 foreclosure affidavit is what you're putting together with your initial Universal Commercial Code 1 affidavit lien. And when you put that Article 9 Universal Commercial Code 1 affidavit Article 9 that says foreclosure, secured transaction, foreclosure at the top. And then you can again start it with the court action language, because these are court orders that are being sent out by the Moors that says, okay, we didn't receive a proper rebuttal to the Universal Commercial Code 1 affidavit that we sent previously to the initial financing statement that said there's some finance due. And you, whoever it is, because we have, this is the beauty of the dollarium, because we have told them they have to pay in gold, we had to provide a way for them to pay in gold. And we did that with the dollarium, so now we are absolutely within our authority and power and due process to foreclose. And foreclosure comes in the form of this study the foreclosure process. Some Moors have gone through that where the corpse was foreclosed on and they were inadvertently a part of that process, okay? And when I say inadvertently, at some point we thought we were corpses, and we thought that they were talking to us when they knocked on the door and came in and put everything out, okay? This is stating that same thing, that they have a certain amount of time, and we would give a certain amount of time for them to get out, okay? Whoever it is that's in there, get out. Because, see, we removed the initial thing, the initial lien removed the corporate covering by court action. That means that, okay, there's some subjects in there who can pay with gold. They can pay with gold. So now we even give them, and I was saying before the recording started that I dropped some documents off at one of the inferior courts yesterday, which I did do, and I put dollarium with the documents, and that included a lien, a Universal Commercial Code 1 initial financing statement affidavit on government letterhead as usual, in red and all lowercase letters when talking about us, and in black with the dead bracket when talking about them. And I put dollarium on top of it, and then my next step in that process is going to be foreclosure if they don't pay the way that they're supposed to pay. Now, with dollarium and with the payment, that has been the place where everything seems to start and stop in terms of how do we monetize the lien. We actually had to provide a way to monetize our own lien, okay? So let me tell you what we have done recently. There are several things that we have done in order to move forward in the sovereign commercial viability of the dollarium. Because we were listening to some of our teachers recently, and they were saying that, you know, dollarium, we have every right to do it, but the commercial viability is still being manifested. And they're right about that. So we always listen to our teachers when they speak and we listen to each other. So we've heard Moors when they said, well, that's not going to work. You know, we heard that. We know that it is going to work because it's lawful, it's constitutional. So what we have done recently is we looked at what does it take to continue to manifest the commercial viability of the dollarium. And in looking through the processes that are out there about how it's always been done with any instrument, we have placed notice by sovereign affidavits. We've leaned the Securities and Exchange Commission, and we placed them on notice. And we are going to, at some point, foreclose if you know, depending on how things go, we will be foreclosing because we already know that we sent some dollarium to the subjects there, okay, so that they can effectuate and do what the system is supposed to do, okay. Now, there is a Form D that corpses do for Securities and Exchange, okay? We don't fill out their forms, so what did we do? We looked at the Form D, we saw what the purpose of it was in that corporate world. We just looked at it, and then we did what we always do. Never fill out their paperwork, always do an affidavit, and that affidavit is coming from the perspective that we are the Securities and Exchange Commission in red and all lowercase letters. So what does the Form D say? And I'll let you, in fact, let me pull up a portion of that form so that we can take a look at it briefly. We won't look at the whole thing, but we will look at part of it. Let me see. Let me see if I can get that on the screen. Okay. So the Form D, we just did an affidavit. A universal sovereign, an Empire State of Morocco, universal sovereign, original indigenous, natural divine, affidavit Form D. Of course, it says, you know, we just used the information that was on their Form D, but we put it in red and all lowercase letters. OMB, most who have worked in the corporate government structure know what OMB, that's the budget office, the Office of Budget Management for the corpses. So they're the office that puts all of the forms out there so that people, and they put the forms out there according to line items in a budget. Okay, that we know because we, you know, when we were in our fleet, we went through the contracting officer class for the Veterans Administration, okay, as part of our management training. And so OMB, all of their forms have an OMB number, okay, and that number just says whenever they see that form come through their system, they apply this budget, this line item, they apply that to that line item where budget is concerned, okay? They know where in the budget to go to find the money to do whatever is necessary to make the form manifest. So again, we don't fill out their forms. What we do is do it our way, which is by sovereign affidavit, in red and all lowercase letters. And one of the things I want to point out on the form is that the Form D for the Securities and Exchange Commission affidavit Okay, and again, we did it because we know we're the Securities and Exchange Commission. That form talks about, in the very first part of that form, it talks about jurisdiction. And they say, what jurisdiction is this instrument or these instruments that you're putting on the record, what is the jurisdiction that they're in? Okay, and so what we put for that, and we filled out two affidavits of our own affidavits. We didn't fill out any forms, we just did affidavits. One of the affidavits is in red and the other is red and blue, because everyone on earth, no matter what their status is, we have to make go-back money available to everyone. The same way that, quote-unquote, Federal Reserve debt notes were available to everyone. We have to make it so that citizen and national sovereigns alike can use the money, okay? Because how can they get remedy if we don't give them a way to pay? Which is the same thing that they did. They, perceptively, presumably. They did a fake treasury and they handed everybody fake notes, and then they said, we need these notes back. Get on that treadmill and start paying us back the stuff we've been printing. So we're following the law, and not following the law, we are looking at the law and being the law when it comes to the money. So it talks about jurisdiction, and again, we put here Empire State of Morocco. That is the jurisdiction. That is the state. And it is all jurisdictions within and under the Empire State of Morocco. All jurisdictions. Okay? That's the same thing that they did with their, the fraudulent Federal Reserve debt notes. It didn't matter what jurisdiction the sale was in. If you were using Federal Reserve debt notes, they automatically just assumed that, okay, and it's not really an assumption. It's actually, according to the Federal Reserve Act, anyone who uses Federal Reserve debt notes is a Federal Reserve agent, right? So it's the same thing with what we're doing, where anyone using gold-backed money on the earth is in a sovereign jurisdiction, and that's going to provide protection for us that we didn't feel like we had that protection when, in using Federal Reserve debt notes. And Article 13 of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 should tell us why. That tells us why. Okay. So, and then we went all the way through. The issuer of the dollarium is the Empire State of Morocco earthwide. Okay. And what is the purpose of these types of documents? The purpose of these types of documents is notification. We're notifying any inferior court doing business as Securities and Exchange Commission that we have our own everything. Because, believe it or not, the Securities and Exchange Commission, quote unquote, is really just a court. A fake is that's actually an inferior court when they're in such a status. It's an inferior court. Period. And believe it or not, that is the status of every single one of them that was doing business as policy enforcers and all of that, people at the grocery store, people here, people there. That's why they feel like they have the authority to tell people to wear masks and do this and that and the third, because they're actually doing a court action with the United States Corporation Company as their quote-unquote corporate state. Well, we know that's not a real state, that we're the state. And all they were saying was, hey, Moors, look at what we're doing. Do the same thing, and then we'll sit down. We'll sit down and stop pretending to be you when you are you. okay? But again, we had to do the statehood piece, because that's that is one of the most important things we could have ever done. It's already done. It's on the record. Okay? We've been the empire state since time immemorial. So this Form D also talks about, it has a place on it that talks about, for example, here, number 6 says, federal exemptions and exclusions commanded. Okay, and on their form it says something inferior, like federal exemptions and exclusions requested, or something like that. That's why we don't fill out their forms, because we're not requesting anything from anybody. We're being ourselves. The Constitution for the United States, 1789 and 1791, as included with this proffering command. Proffering is our way of saying command. On their documents, they call it an offer. Okay. And then they talk about distribution. Where is all of this going? Okay. And they talk about investments and all of that, which, again, there are no foreigners at the earth-wide empire state of Morocco. We are all one. They talk about sales compensation and command amounts and all of that. The Empire State of Morocco people are lawful, as are their exchanges. We are without limit when it comes to our commands and the amount. They're talking about proceeds and things like that, and we've done our due diligence and our study on all of that in terms of how to present that, okay? And then we put down at the bottom, receiving of this Empire State of Morocco Form D is acceptance of this and all Empire State of Morocco laws. We are the sovereign jurisdiction at all times and at all points in time. So now, we are working to continue to manifest the viability, the commercial viability. We know that the Moorish sovereign dollarium is absolutely 100% valid on its face. Why? Because it comes from the heirs, period. And then there's some other things that we have done as well that we will talk about at a later time that we're putting into manifestation with the dollarium, things that have to do with the SWIFT system. And I'll just, in fact, I'll just pull up really quickly just so that you can take a look at the SWIFT system document and our study there on how we're putting all of this, the viability of the Moorish sovereign dollarium, how we're putting it on the public record, because there are several different processes that needed to take place in order for, again, for us to continue to manifest the commercial viability of the Moorish sovereign dollarium. Yes, it's constitutional. We know that. Yes, it is. It's lawful. We know that. Now all we're doing is putting the law in place at all of the levels to include all jurisdictions within the Empire State of Morocco. And the Empire State of Morocco is universal, okay? So no matter what land we go on, we're still in the Empire State of Morocco. Therefore, everything that has to do with gold-backed sovereign money, lawful money, can be done on any of our land masses. So there's no difference in what we're doing on any of the other land masses. We're putting those things in place for the whole earth, okay? Another something that we've done is we're looking at ISO, and those who have been in the contracting field. When I was, again, in our fleet, we were contracting officers for the Veterans Administration. And We always dealt with ISO documents and ISO codes and statutes with everything that we're doing. So what do? We put it in red in all lowercase letters, and there's several different things that had to happen here. This affidavit that we did recently was a special status affidavit where deposits, withdrawals, and exchanges are concerned. And then with ISO, we did the indigenous standardization originators. ISO for the corpses is a standardization mechanism that says no matter where you go financially, these are the basic foundations of what would make a financial instrument or money or exchange or transaction viable. Okay, so there had to be some standardization. All earthwide there had to be standardization. So we've looked at the ISO standardization format, and then we've taken it, put it in red, all lowercase letters, and put it forth as the indigenous standardization originators because we originated ISO. Okay, and then we also we're doing a lot where electronic money interchange is concerned. Okay, electronic money interchange is where you go and you put dollarium into an institution, a banking institution that's within the Empire State of Morocco, and that dollarium is taken into the system and then made electronic so that you can, go out and do swipe cards and do whatever, okay? That is what the electronic interchange codes and statutes that we are studying and have studied are about. So that has everything to do with the SWIFT system. And for SWIFT, for the corporates, is the Society Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications System. For the Moors and for the heirs earthwide, it's the Sovereign Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications System. And again, that's what it was initially before 1970-something, when the corporates discovered that we had this system, and they said, okay, let's put it in corporate terms and capitalize it, and put it in dead ink in capital letters, so that when the Moors wake up, we can put this forward, and then they'll know to convert it back and do a reversion of estate on the language. Okay? So, again, this is all dollarium related. It has everything to do with the commercial viability of the dollarium. We can't be stopped. We cannot be stopped, period. Okay? So we're going to continue moving forward. And then there's also, as a part of this study and this demonstration that we're doing, the SWIFT system requires some what they call MT coding that helps banks, no matter where they are on the earth, recognize the exchanges of other banks, the electronic exchanges of other banks. So again, we're thinking about the whole vast estate and not just part of it. And I'll just give you a brief look at what that looks like. The MT series they have MT100, sovereign payments and checks. Now for them, for the corporates, it's an inferior system of payments and checks. The MT100 series is more for quote unquote individuals. Okay, whereas for us it's for the sovereign. Okay, but still within the Empire State of Morocco. Okay, and then MT200 is financial institution exchanges. MT300, treasury market. MT400, collections and cash affidavits, okay? MT500 securities instrument market, MT600 treasury market, metals and commodities. So that's more of the same, the gold and the silver, the land, anything that has to do with those markets. MT700 is creditor liens and documentary credit, okay? MT800, sovereign travelers instruments, okay? And in the inferior system, it's called traveler's check. They call it traveler's check, that part. For us, it's sovereign travelers instruments. MT900 series is cash management and sovereign status updates, and that's where the Swiss system, let's just use, for example, Bank for America. Bank for America here would send a message to Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, HSBC, over in China somewhere, territory. And whenever they send that message over about a certain amount, what is the status update of this cash transaction? So that's where states and nations talk to one another. And that's why, and this is not just about the Swiss system, because there are other systems. And so instead of just focusing on the Swiss system, we focused on ISO, the standardization mechanism. So that way, even if banks say, oh, we don't use the Swiss system, well, there's several others that they do use, okay? And there's only about 4 of those earthwide. And all 4 of them are under the Federal Reserve in their fake system, you know, under that corporate system or inferior system. So all we're doing is taking back that which was ours in the first place, okay? The MT910 is creditor affirmation. And we went ahead with this document and placed the creditor affirmation on the public record. Now, let me say something about the public record, too. I was watching a video recently, and it was a beautiful video. It featured one of our brothers, you know, giving, he's dealing with the subject, and, you know, it was a beautiful video, and they were saying, but, as always, the subjects, they vacillate back and forth between subjects and corpses, depending on what the Moors say. So whenever you're dealing with them, you have to continue to invoke the proper language that keeps them in subject status, or else they will veer back over into the corporate lane. Okay, and I heard that throughout the video. They just kept going back over into the corporate lane and trying to usurp. And then out of the next breath, they were saying one thing, and then they would say the exact opposite in the same breath. And if you don't know what they're doing, if you're not aware, you will not see them going back and forth like that. So what we did was, what they were saying in that video, the subject, when they were vacillating back into corporate status, they were saying, well, we're talking about de jure government, and we're only talking about the ones that are on the record. And he was talking about a corporate record. And at the beginning of the video, he even said that they're bankrupt and you can't operate in bankruptcy. He said that out of his mouth. And if you're not paying attention, you would have missed right on by that, because he went beyond that and started talking about what they're doing and how they filed this and they filed that and they've done this and done that. But they're in bankruptcy and we're not. So they were saying again that, you know, that we needed, or they were saying that is your government, we're only recognizing the ones that are on the record. Well, they wanted us to be, they want Moors to get on their record. But that's backwards. That's backwards. In reality, when we do things like this and do it in red in all lowercase letters by sovereign affidavit, and we put it on the public record, that turns the record into Article 3 too. So that means that they're on our record, not the other way around. We actually have to recognize them or they don't have no standing. See, Moors have had, some Moors, a few Moors have had that mixed up where they're trying to get recognition from them. Recognition, no. It's the other way around. When we are doing what we've been doing, which all Moors are just really demonstrating beautifully, as we continue doing that, again, the record belongs to us. They have to get on our record the right way, not the other way around. We don't have to go corporate to get on their record. They have to actually get in subject status to be on the right record, or else they face judgment. And that's what this whole talk is about. We started out with the Article 9 foreclosure process. If you're not on our record as a subject, and we will know by your you will let us know by your behavior and the things that come out of your mouth. Okay, if you're not on our record as a Moorish subject ipso juror, according to the law, then you're lienable. You're lienable. And these processes right here that we're putting forth is the reason why there was some pushback on, those liens don't, you need to be doing liens. You don't need, yes, we do. We need to do them. We need to understand them. We need to understand the financial process. We need to understand all of that. Because we started all of it. So now, as we continue to manifest the commercial viability of the dollarium, we've been given other steps that we'll talk about later. Those other steps came straight from the ancestral energy, and we know that those steps are the right ones because we're doing the research. And we're getting information from everywhere. I want to thank all the Moors who are sending us information. Justice Dauda, yes, Justice Dauda in Canaan Land Territory. Thank you, Justice Malik. In Canaan, thank you so much for the information that you sent on to us yesterday. We had, or actually this morning, because we had already put all of this together before then, and the information that he sent was affirmation that what we're doing is correct. So we are continuing to manifest the dollarium because it is necessary. We have to, in order to continue to do things like monetize the liens that we have, because they don't have the authority, corporates don't have the authority to monetize a lien that's done by the sovereign. They just don't. They don't even have the authority to monetize. They don't even monetize their own stuff because they know it's fraud. So with that being said, I am going to, let me see, let me go back to, okay, you can stay there. Just one moment. I'm going to take the meeting out of lecture mode. And if you have any questions about what's being done with regard to the dollarium, we will not stop. You know, we will not stop. And the answers are there because guess what? Those that were doing Federal Reserve debt notes and putting that whole hypothecation out there, they're not smarter than the Moors. So we see the path that needs to be taken in order to continue to manifest that which we are working to continue to manifest in regards to the vast estate. So we're going to continue moving forward on the dollarium, and we see now it's manifesting as it should.
How come real estate today doesn't use any of your...
Are there any questions from the heirs? Any questions about any of the, or any comments about any of the processes or anything that you've seen along the way?
Come on, Pauline, how come you haven't gone in?
Okay. With that being said, I will say this, that
what's the holdup, you dumb bitch?
The questions that are being posed, if coming from a viable source or a living source,
crooked,
we're happy to answer those questions coming from a living source. Okay. But if it's not coming from a living source or someone who is a respectful subject, then we're not obligated to answer anything. And we're not obligated in the first place unless we're on the Senate floor, which everywhere we go is the Senate floor for us. It's the court. With that being said, I don't have anything further today. We'll be keeping you updated on the dollarium and the manifestation thereof. And if there's any way that I can be of assistance to anyone, please let me know. You all have my number is out there, so feel free to call, text, etc. And really quickly, I'm glad I didn't forget this. I want to take the time right now to just congratulate Empress Simone L in the Washington Territory. I want to congratulate her on, she's having a soft opening tonight with regard to, she's opening a very important space for the Moors here in the Territory. And I want to congratulate her. We love her. Her work is exquisite. And we're so glad that, you know, active Moors. She's active, and so are the Moors who are assisting with the opening of the Alhambra House here at downtown Tacoma, Washington Territory, which is actually Palouse Territory. Some of you may not know this territory, Seattle, Washington Territory, all the way up to BC, British Columbia Territory, and down into Oregon, Idaho Territory. This is actually the country of Palouse, North Africa. At one time, on the map, this was named Palouse. She has called it Palouse, and some other Moors have called it Palouse, so it's Palouse Territory it is. It's also Washington District for Columbia. We've seen that on some of the older maps as well. This gigantic territory was the initial one that the Fakes modeled their little 10 by 10 by 10 after. So with that being said, we want to congratulate her and the Moors that are meeting. They're actually there at this time. And for that, we are so grateful. And then they're having the grand opening next month. So if there are any more who are interested in Simone L, she's on social media. You can find her on social media. If you want to come out next month, it's going to be the week of Moorish American Week, which is the 15th. So it's the week after Prophet Noble Jali's Solar Return Day. So with that being said, if there's nothing further, no other questions or comments, etc., peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous.
Peace and love, heirs.
It's no more.
Grand Rising.
Grand Rising.
Goodbye.